So the Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door remake is coming out very soon, and from what I've heard and seen, it seems like everyone is happy about this. People have been asking for a proper follow-up or full-blown remake of this game for years, so I'm excited that the fans are finally getting one of them. And it's so soon after people got the other remake they've been asking for years, the Super Mario RPG remake. Now, in the past, I have not said the kindest words about Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. You can all shut the fuck up about this game and realize it's not as amazing as your nostalgia thinks it is. Oh, I'm sorry, am I not sucking this game's dick enough like everybody else? Maybe that's because I don't like it. But you know what? It's a new year and a new me, so I figured I'd give the game one more try and see if my opinions had changed at all. I wanted to actually buy the game, but I quickly realized that was not going to be an option, so I decided to borrow a copy for a bit. I played it for about 3 hours, and yeah, I still don't get it. Maybe I didn't get far enough into the game, but after 3 hours, I feel like something about it should have stood out or hooked me into it. The reason I bring all this up is because it's always just been so weird to me that this is considered to be the best Mario RPG, because in my eyes, I'd actually rather play Paper Jam than this. I know, that's a very big claim to make, but it's honestly just because I've always preferred the Mario and Luigi games over all other Mario RPGs. Specifically, Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story, but it's all because I think this series of games perfected how combat should work in any turn-based RPG. I know that I am fighting an uphill battle when I say that. In fact, I told my friends about this idea, and they called me stupid, and you're all probably thinking the same thing. But please, before you comment on the video or before you click off, just hear me out, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll see where I'm coming from. The Mario and Luigi series made one change to the combat that makes it the peak of turn-based RPGs. I'm not kidding, by the way, it's literally just one thing. I assume that if you're watching this video, you already know what a turn-based RPG is, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, let me quickly explain what they are. A turn-based RPG is just exactly what it sounds like. It's a game where the combat is done in turns. There are a lot of examples, like Persona, Dragon's Quest, and all the mainline Pokémon games. Basically, you attack, then they attack, then you, then them, then you, them, you, them, you, them, until eventually one of you dies. It's a style of game that has been around for decades and one that has many, many fans. I am not one of those fans. Look, I'm not gonna stand here and pretend like I don't understand why people like these games. I do, but for me, there's just always been a few issues with the gameplay that have always bothered me. Things like the enemies not having a health bar, or each enemy literally stopping you in your tracks, and the fact that all the battles eventually start to feel the same are all super annoying things, but they aren't always prevalent in every single turn-based RPG. The real deal breaker to me, and the issue that I have with almost every single turn-based RPG, is the combat. Nearly every game has the exact same issue with combat where during a fight, there's no guaranteed way to defend yourself without wasting your turn. It doesn't matter if you're fighting a level 1 Pidgey or a Starman on your way to Gygas. If you don't take out that enemy in one hit, you are taking damage. That one thing, that one tiny decision has ruined my experience with basically every game in this genre. Sure, some games, like the other Mario RPGs, do give you the chance to lessen the amount of damage that you take, but you're still taking damage. On the surface, it may not sound like that big of an issue, but this one choice can ripple out and cause a lot of other issues in the game down the line. Having this one flaw in your game removes all degree of skill needed to win. With no way to protect yourself and make progress at the same time, it all just becomes a giant game of whose numbers are bigger. By the way, I would like to point out that this is something people complain about all the time in other games, but for some reason this entire genre gets a pass. Oh my god, and don't even get me started if the game has a difficulty spike. If you can't avoid damage and the game has a difficulty spike, you're going to hit a wall and won't be able to win any fights. I can't be the only one that hates when you're playing a game normally and all of a sudden, everyone is too strong. Since you can't dodge, this means you now need to grind, meaning you can't continue the game until you've had the required amount of fun, leading to a feeling of the game being stretched out. Do you see the fucking problem? I am sure you can already guess what the Mario and Luigi games do differently, right? It's a turn-based RPG that actually lets you dodge. The way the combat works for the most part is actually pretty standard, but when the enemies attack, instead of you just sitting there and taking it, you are given the opportunity to dodge and even counterattack. This one change fixes the majority of problems I have with this genre as a whole. By giving you the opportunity to leave each fight with no damage taken, then every hit and every death feels more fair and less cheap. If you get hurt in the Mario and Luigi games, it's your fault, no one else's. It also means that if you run into an enemy that is giving you trouble, you will actually have options for how to deal with it. Sure, you could go grind and get your numbers bigger than theirs, but if you don't want to do that, throwing yourself against the wall until it breaks is a perfectly viable option. Skill is suddenly added back into the game, all because you can dodge. Theoretically, you could actually beat every Mario and Luigi game from level 1 because winning fights isn't about luck. Say it with me now, it's about skill. There are other benefits too. Being able to dodge every attack will also make every enemy feel more unique and adds another layer of strategy to the fights. While yes, I know, all the enemies do technically have different attacks, that doesn't really mean they're different. I know I probably sound like an insane person when I say that, but think about it. Being attacked by this slime and being attacked by S-Stark may do different damage and it may hit more than one of your party, but it's still the same thing happening over and over again. Once again, Mario and Luigi games show just how it should be done. See, every enemy in the game has their own attacks that must be learned and studied to avoid on a consistent basis. This Koopa and this Bean may both charge at you, but they do it in different ways. In fact, each enemy has a different reaction to being counterattacked too. Going back to the Bean thing in the Koopa, when you hit the Bean, it just goes back to its side and takes its lumps. But the Koopa, it actually goes into its shell and starts bouncing around the stage, meaning you can now hit every other enemy on the field. So you can't really just figure out how to dodge one enemy and be set for the game. You gotta put the work in. Oh, speaking of putting the work in, I've talked to a few people that try to tell me that I'm wrong and not being able to dodge means that you need to think about every move, or that's why strategy is so important. Both these statements are completely stupid. Being able to dodge and counterattack actually adds another level of strategy to the combat and just makes the whole thing so much more immersive. Here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Early in the game, you fight the Bean Bean Queen after she's had way too many steroids. In the beginning of the fight, she has this attack where she slams the ground and you have to jump over a big shockwave. Each turn, she gets closer and closer to you, making the shockwave harder to dodge each time. So you want to take out her arms quickly to make sure that her attacks are easier to deal with. Or you could not do that, because if you get rid of the arms, then she starts to spawn more enemies for you to deal with. This means you now have a choice. You can either learn to dodge the large shockwave no matter the distance, or dodge multiple attacks each turn. In fact, one of the speedrunning strats for this fight, yes, these games do have legitimate speedrunning strategies, involves you never hitting her arms, so you need to learn how to dodge that shockwave. Stuff like that is persistent throughout the games, and it really makes you think about the battles in more ways than hit the strongest enemy first. Hell, in these games, there are also times where dodging or countering can actually be the wrong move. At a certain point in the game, you have to go to this location called Woohoo University. Besides being home to just a ton of Easter eggs from past games, special shout out to the block room, it is also where you will encounter these little guys called laser sniffets. When you fight them, they have two different attacks. The first being a laser ring that you have to jump through to avoid. It's pretty standard stuff. Well, their second attack happens when they just get right up in your face, just like all the way in your personal space. The first time I saw this attack, I thought all I had to do was dodge the moment that they shot out the laser, but that's actually the wrong move. Turns out, the difference isn't the distance of the shot, it's the height. See, this attack, the ring is lower than the other one, so if you actually try and dodge this one, you'll hit the ring and take damage. It's so cool that they added this in because it adds yet another layer of strategy to the battles, because there are some attacks where the right move is to stand there and do nothing. Actually, as the game goes on and on and on, it will start to reward you for paying attention and recognizing this pattern. Some enemies later in the game will actually shoot mushrooms at you during their attacks, meaning if you take those to the face, you'll heal yourself without needing to use an item. All of this just makes the combat so much more engaging by forcing you to pay so much attention to the enemy's attacks. I just don't understand how nobody else looked at this and went, we should do that. That's how these games should play from now on. That's how we make these more engaging. Alright, let's just say you still don't believe me. You look at all the things that I said and you still don't believe how much depth this one simple change adds to turn-based RPG combat. You might be sitting there going, Sam, this is all well and good, but this is just one game showcasing this. Maybe it's just that secret Mario sauce that makes this so engaging. Maybe if there was another turn-based RPG that used the dodging mechanic and it enhanced the game, then I'll believe you. And you know what? That's very fair. Maybe it is just that Nintendo magic that makes this one work so well. So let's look at another turn-based RPG with a dodge mechanic. One made by an indie developer. One that took the internet by storm. One that literally taught thousands of people the definition of pacifism. I'm talking Undertale. It's weird, but until this video, I kind of forgot Undertale is a turn-based RPG. In fact, it's one of the only turn-based RPGs that are not made by Alpha Dream that lets you dodge during the combat. And let's be honest, it makes the fight so much more enjoyable and memorable. Sure, it doesn't have the countering mechanic that the Mario and Luigi games have, but it does everything else almost the exact same. Every enemy you encounter is going to have a different attack that you need to learn how to dodge. In fact, Undertale kind of changes it up a little bit because the enemies will attack you at the same time, meaning you have to learn how to dodge both simultaneously. This again means that you have to pay more attention to which enemy you get rid of first. If one enemy has an attack that's harder to dodge than the other, then that's who you're gonna go after first. And by the way, let's not forget the bosses. I'm sorry, no disrespect to Toby Fox, but are you really gonna sit there and tell me that these bosses would be just as enjoyable if you couldn't dodge their attacks? Hell, the reason the Sans fight is so enjoyable is because of how hard his attacks are to dodge. Hell, it might just be a coincidence that Undertale is a more complex version of the Mario and Luigi system, but maybe Toby Fox did have these games in the back of his mind when he made Undertale. Look, in the end, I'm not saying that you still can't enjoy classic turn-based RPGs. Just because the Mario and Luigi series did something better, that doesn't mean that everything that came before immediately turns to shit. I'll even admit that not every single game is going to work with a dodge mechanic. The Pokémon games, for example, could never have combat like this because then it would just be a completely different game. You may have noticed that during this entire video, even though I keep saying the Mario and Luigi series, I've only been mentioning examples from Superstar Saga. And the reason I decided to do that is because I'm so tired of people acting like life can't get better than the 1,000-year door when Nintendo already found perfection 1 year earlier. One day, I really hope that somebody else is gonna pick up where Alpha Dream left off and make a truly complex turn-based RPG that uses this combat system. Just think of how cool it would be if there was like a Final Fantasy VI style game where the combat had a dodge and counter mechanic. In my eyes, a game like that is the perfected version of the turn-based RPG genre. The Mario and Luigi games left the building blocks for something truly amazing, and hopefully a game designer in the future will truly take advantage of what they left behind. But until that day comes though, I will never stop screaming from the rooftops that the Mario and Luigi games always did it better. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I tried something new again with this video, so let me know if you like it. I have at least one more of these planned, but after that, if you guys don't like it, you'll never see it again. Hit that subscribe button to know when the next video comes out. The Summer Games Fest is right around the corner, so there will be another abridged video for that. And if you don't want to wait for that, you can also listen to my podcast, My Parents' Basement, on any major podcast streaming platform. Link for that down below, and also links for every channel that I use to get the footage for this video. Be sure to give them a subscribe too, and I'll see you all next time.